In the next episode of One Piece, Brook tries to disguise himself as a human. Oh my god, Brook, is that real human flesh?
Where did you get the flesh from, Brook? Where have you been keeping it? In the fridge? That's where we keep the crew's food!
King of the wetness gonna take you down, gonna take you down. Marineford Arc, yeah, it's getting hot now. It's getting hot now. King of the wetness gonna take you down, gonna take you down. Marineford Arc, yeah, it's getting hot now. It's getting hot now. We've got a multi-act season, 1, 2, 3. So come aboard to brave this sea. Supernovas and mystery. Warlords, wars, and tragedy. King of the wetness gonna take you down. Gonna take you down. Marineford Arc, yeah, it's getting hot now. It's getting hot now.
Celestial dragons, lowest of low. Overwhelming enemies, it's time to go. Luffy's gonna fight for his big bro, so now it's time to start the show. Hello, fellow adventurers of the Grand Line, and welcome to episode 96 of King of the What Now?
King of the what now?
King of the What Now? Your one and only stop for One Piece themed fruits. Not devil fruits, mind you, but just Luffy apples, Chopper pears, Sanji watermelon. For obvious reasons, I think that we can all see.
Yeah, I mean, I get it.
We are a One Piece anime review podcast, reviewing the anime from the very beginning. As always, I'm your host, Joel, an incredibly hot merman, but goddamn am I stupid.
Big himbo energy here, folks. And I am your co-host, Kat, and honestly, I'm pretty sick, and I've been sick for a month now, so if there's weird gaps in the episode, it's because I had to take a break to cough myself to death, but we are still here providing you that sweet, sweet One Piece content you crave, and hopefully by the time the episode goes live, I won't be sick anymore.
You know how, like, in the movies, there's, like, the person who is dying or possibly dead, and someone who's alive is like, you've got to live, damn it. That's gonna be me, but instead of live, it's, you've got to record, damn it. It's in your contract. And your first word upon waking will be, contract? And don't worry about it. I slipped information about this podcast into our wedding vows before we even knew we were going to do a podcast. That's how insidious it is. All right. Now, before we get into this, before we get into chatting with the host, I do want to cover something really quick. So far in King of the What Now, we've been reviewing episodes in sequential order. However, Sabaody Archipelago, the arc that we're currently on, it's really back-heavy. Like, there's a lot of really light, boring episodes at the beginning, and then it just ramps up to 11. And right after these really intense episodes, there's 2 filler episodes that are garbage and do not belong with the high-intensity episodes. So we watched episodes 385 through 389, and then skipped ahead to 406 and 407. But other than filler episodes, we're going to continue watching these things in order.
Yeah, it was a Jipang episode, so it literally had nothing to do with the rest of the series. It did kind of a face reveal for a character that we don't get until the next couple episodes.
Yeah, because it aired after episode 390, and 390 has a thing, but, like, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, you're not spoiling anything for yourself if you watch them out of order like we did.
Absolutely.
That said, Joel, what have you been reading, watching, listening to lately?
Yeah, so the big thing, the one show that we've been watching that I really want to talk about is Umbrella Academy. Second season just came out on Netflix a couple of weeks ago. By the time this episode goes out, it'll probably be far longer than that. But it's a pretty cool show. I like it. It does that thing with the superheroes that, like, don't like to use their powers or are troubled or broken by them. But it doesn't do it in a grimdark way, and so I really like it. Give it a watch, because it's one of those shows that I don't think you should know much going in, but there's time travel and potential, like, aliens and alternate dimensions and that sort of stuff that shows up, and there's a dick-ass father who does not know how to show emotions, and it's very complicated, and the relationships between the different characters are very realistic. And one of the characters is in the body of a child for reasons, and so it's just incredible that they found a child actor who could act like this snooty 60-year-old man who thinks he's the smartest man in the room.
Yeah, his acting was really good. Like, I don't really like the whole child actor industry.
No,
but
absolutely.
He did a good job, and I hope that his career continues.
Absolutely.
I really liked Umbrella Academy. We binged the whole series, both season 1 and season 2, in about 4-ish days.
Something like that.
Which I wouldn't recommend. I think that shows are better when you take your time with them because you don't feel like the plot is rushed, but you wouldn't feel like that if you didn't watch, 8 hours of content in 8 hours. So I would recommend, 1 or 2 episodes a day. Take your time with it. I really loved season 1. I felt a little less strongly about season 2, but I have discovered by talking to people on Twitter that that's not common. Season 2 went over really well with most people.
Oh, interesting. Awesome. Yeah, the season 1 does have the benefit of there's a bit of a mystery of what's going on, and the characters haven't seen each other for like 10, 15 years, something like that. And so there's these like reveals of what these different characters were up to. And in season 2, they've already kind of told each other everything, so there's fewer mysteries. I think that's why it's less gripping. I think Heroes had the same problem where its second season wasn't quite as good as the first, but I'd still recommend it, and it's getting to some really bizarre places. Season 3 looks like it's setting up one of my favorite tropes that I will not spoil here, but yeah, I'm going to watch season 3. I really like the show. I'm sorry that I slept on it for so long. Anything that you would like to call out?
I've been loving God of High School. As of recording, we have watched episode 7 of God of High School. And by the time this episode airs, the season will probably be over. I'm not sure how many episodes they've got slated for season 1, but it's a really solid show, particularly the fight choreography, I think is amazing and beautiful. The plot really starts to pick up around episode 6 or so.
Somewhere around there,
and we're in it now. I really like that this series seems to be taking the explain as little as possible and let your viewers figure it out from context as the characters kind of figure it out route. I've seen some people on Twitter who are annoyed by that. They're like, I don't get what's happening at all. So, you might like it or you might not. I really enjoy it. The main characters are super fun, and I'm rooting for them. I want them to succeed, and all of the people that they fight in this tournament could easily have series that are just about them. They're all really interesting, too.
Yes. And the basic premise is that there's a tournament, and a bunch of people who are in high school can use any martial arts they want. They can use weapons or no weapons, and they basically want to try to prove themselves to be the strongest, but maybe there's a sinister organization behind all of this. Like Kat said, it mostly lets you figure it out, but there's just one episode where they go, okay, you're not going to understand anything if we don't explain this, so here's a term you can know, and it means superpowers, and then that's it. But, yeah. Anything else that you would like to say about the show?
No, I think I've summed up my thoughts pretty well. It's beautiful.
Yes.
I really love the art direction that they took on this show. I think they're doing a great job. I've also started watching Great Pretender, which is a Netflix original as opposed to a Crunchyroll original. Very different directions in art style, but they're both beautiful, and I'm just amazed at how, animation has changed since I was a kid.
Yes. Absolutely. I wasn't watching Great Pretender with you necessarily, but I was looking up from my computer every, couple of minutes, and it is very well drawn, and I like the characters, and it's interesting because a lot of the characters, I think, are speaking Japanese, and there's a little subtitle that shows up at the beginning of one of the episodes that says, by the way, they're all speaking Japanese, but you're hearing it in English, so you don't have to read the subtitles, or something like that. But then every once in a while, you'll hear kind of the imperfect English as they are saying something to an American, and I think it's really interesting that they took the time to figure out how well would this character be able to speak English. Reasonably well, but they'd have a bit of an accent, of course they would, and yeah, I like it.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else you want to talk about?
I've been playing a lot of League of Legends, which is a game that people know about. Maybe you've heard of it, but I would absolutely not recommend this game to anyone who plays games on their own, like myself. I don't have a big group of online friends to play games with, but I was able to find a group of people through the Full Spectrum podcast, who we've talked about multiple times. They have a Discord with 8, 9 of us that play the game, and a couple of them are just amazing, so even though I'm shit at the game, I can still enjoy playing with them. and I don't get teamed up with random people who think that like racial slurs are the appropriate way to show your expression or express your frustration for the fact that they didn't kill the dragon.
Right. Nobody's going to be like, this guy is new. Can we give up? Because we're not going to win with this new player.
It actually happened. But anyways, yeah, so the community is a bit toxic, but if you find the right players to play with, it's kind of fun. There's a lot of champions and whatnot. I also want to really quickly shout out the YouTube channel Thought Slime. They talk about politics a lot. They are anti-capitalist, and, you know, that might rub you the wrong way. If you disagree with their politics, I hope that we can still be friends, but I find their information to be rather interesting, and I agree with a lot of their points, but I'm also happy to check out other channels with other points of view. But they gotta be a little funny or charming, because I have found a few channels that are opposite spectrum side, and their arguments aren't persuasive to any degree.
And to be clear, we're not, like, necessarily interested in listening to alt-right or fascist propaganda.
No, absolutely not.
But it's important for people to have well-rounded ideas, and so if one person is like, capitalism is great, and the other person is like, capitalism is bad, you know, we're willing to hear them both out and hear their arguments. Just know, like, this group of people should not exist.
Yeah, that's gross and nasty. Okay, I think that about wraps up chatting with the hosts. We have been watching Fruits Basket. We've already talked about it. It's going places. The plot is actually, like, moving forward, which is what I always wanted from it. We continue to watch Witchy PreCure. By the time this episode comes out, I'm sure that we'll have finished it, but we really, really like this series. Especially a character who gets more prominence towards the halfway point, and they have a standalone movie right around episode 38 is when it aired, and we just watched that last night in real time, and oof, it was a good one. It was a really good one.
Yes, between the last time we recorded and now, I reread Gideon the Ninth and I read Harrow the Ninth. These are incredible books about lesbian necromancy. So if
in space.
In space.
That's the important. You have to remind people.
Gothic lesbian necromancy in space. Oh my gosh, just saying that sentence gets me excited. And they have swords. So, you know, if you're into all of those things, go for it. These books are so well written, and the author, Tasman Muir, does such incredible things with language and perspective that anybody who likes any level of fiction, right? If you're just looking for a fun, silly time, if you like very high-end literature, like, check this series out. I cannot recommend it strongly enough. I'm not going to say more about it because next year, the third book in the series is coming out, and we are definitely going to do a bonus episode.
On all three?
We're going to do a bonus episode on the first two.
Okay.
In preparation for the third.
That makes perfect sense. We've also been rereading Way of Kings. It's a great book. You should check it out. It's by Brandon Sanderson, but we're going to also be releasing a bonus episode. So if you wanted to head on over to Patreon and support us, we would appreciate it. We know times are tough, so if you can't afford it, we're, you know, no shade or no shame. But it's going to be a long episode, I can guarantee it, because this is one of our favorite authors.
And it's a long book.
It is a very long book.
But I think that just about wraps us up. Do we want to get into the succinct summary for these episodes?
One really quick note. This was supposed to go at the beginning of the episode, but I'm a forgetful person. You know, I forgets all the time. But if you are watching, or if you are listening to this episode on like a podcast catcher type app, you might notice that this episode deviates from our usual naming scheme. In the past, it's been Thriller Bark Episode 1, Sky Island Arc Episode 1. But what we're doing this time is we've kind of... I don't feel as though Sabaody Archipelago, the arc that we're currently on, and the next arc, and the next arc, and the next arc, I don't feel as though they're actually separate, so I don't feel like coming up with a new theme song for each of those different islands or locations or story points. So instead of, you know, Sabaody Episode 1, it's Marineford War Prelude Episode 1, and Prelude is Sabaody, and then we're also going to have an Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3. That's a bit of a foreshadowing, that's a bit of a... we're kind of revealing something that maybe you shouldn't technically know at this point, but honestly, I think most of our listeners are people who know all of One Piece.
And they just love One Piece so much that they're happy to revisit it over and over, which, like, same.
Absolutely.
Big same.
If you don't know what the Marineford War arc is because you're a newbie to the series, don't worry about it. It's nothing. It's just a war. It happens all the time. It's gonna be fine. Don't worry about it.
But also, get some popcorn.
Get ready because these are some dense episodes, and it makes me kind of sad that we have to go into a succinct summary about Iron Mask Duval when there's all of this cool stuff like right over there. It's like when you're like a level 1 video game player and you're like, oh, the Goombas, and then someone's like, in level 7, Bowser has machine guns for hands, and Bowser Jr. turns into an actual dragon. You're like, can I play that level?
It's like sitting through 20-ish episodes of weird sun magic vampire stuff when you're just waiting for the people to summon ghosts to fight for them.
Ah, okay. I thought you were making a reference to, what was that show? The one where she was a fairy? Spoilers for season 5 of whatever show that was. There was a show that had...
True Blood?
Was that True Blood?
That was True Blood.
Okay. With Suki, right?
Oh, God.
Suki is mine!
We had a roommate who watched it, and Joel latched on to just that single line.
Well, not only that, but they reference it in Psych, which was another one of my favorite shows. And so when they got to that line, I was like, oh, yeah! Okay, we need to focus. It's been a while since we've been behind the mic recording. We have a lot of energy, despite being sick, one of us. Okay. The Straw Hats have left Thriller Bark. They get into a place with bad weather that causes there to be serpent snake currents, and Nami's like, I'm such a good navigator, I can navigate through it. And Brook's like, I'm such a good music player, I can play music and make everyone hyped up. And then they get through the snakes.
Oh, dang. They show you that Nami's a good navigator, but then she can't navigate to where they're trying to go.
Oh my gosh. They find the red line. There's a lot of happy memories and reflections, and Robin and Frankie and maybe Brook, I don't think so, but they reflect on when they came to the Grand Line the first time, and when they hit Reverse Mountain. Frankie was too young to remember it. God, I wonder if he's going to get a flashback one of these days about his childhood, or we're going to meet his dad or something. Anyways... they get to the red line. They try to figure out how to get to Fishman Island. They can't, not even with Frankie's shark submerge submarine. They can only go down 5,000 feet. Fishman Island's 10,000 feet below. They don't know what to do. They meet a mermaid who had been eaten by a sea king, and Luffy punched the sea king. And her name's Kaney. She's gorgeous, but she's young and incredibly stupid. She's been eaten by sea kings multiple times, even though mermaids are supposed to be faster than anything else under the water. But she spaces out and gets eaten all the time. She also has this starfish thing that looks like it should be like a plush doll, but it's an actual starfish, and he wears like a Jamaican beanie head dress. I'm not sure what the correct term is. I apologize. But that character's really annoying. I don't like him. His name is Popug, I think. Then they go to rescue their friend Hachin, who I think Zoro immediately recognizes is probably Hachi from Arlong Park, the octopus that he fought. Luffy's stupid. Frankie never met him. Robin never met him. And they find out that, indeed, Hachin is Hachi. Nami's like, it's okay, I forgive him for the racism stuff. He actually was harmless compared to the other members of Arlong's crew. And then we meet the Flying Fish Riders, and oh boy, the scary Flying Fish Riders, they're so dangerous, and how are they gonna... They're immediately taken out. They pose zero threat to the group whatsoever. We are introduced to the Sunny's secret weapon, the Gao Cannon, which is like a Kudo burst, except it comes out from the mouth, and it's a laser beam instead of like a... What would you call that? Like a jet burst type of boost thing. A man shows up, his name is Iron Duval, he's hyped up, he's scary as shit, he's in the shadow.
He's got the big sit.
He's got the big sit, he's got the V-sit, he's got the mask over his face, everyone fears him, and he has a grudge with that man on the Straw Hat crew. And it turns out, he doesn't like Sanji. And everyone's like, Sanji, do you know this guy? Is he from the Baratier? And the Iron Mask Duval is like, this crime that you committed was recently. And Sanji's like, I've been with you guys. I don't freaking know. And then it turns out that underneath the mask is Sanji. not the Sanji from the Straw Hat Crew, but the whack-ass Sanji on the wanted poster with the weird, like, hay-like hair and the giant lips and the badly drawn curly eyebrows. Iron Mask Duval looks exactly like that version of Sanji, and he blames Sanji for the fact that the Marines are coming after him. Sanji promptly kicks his ass because he is not a threat whatsoever.
Sanji is so mad that this is the reason they've been held up here. This bullshit.
Yeah, and he's like, I don't take pride in that wanted poster. I want my actual face on there too. So he's kicking the dude quite a bit. He's going after the dude's face, and he's using attack names that we haven't seen before. But the episode technically ends with Duval off screen, defeated, and we don't know what happened. But even when I was watching these episodes the first time, I think I was reading the manga at the time, when I read these chapters the first time, I thought, you know what? I bet you Sanji did something to his face in order to fix the fact that he was being attacked by the Marines. But we don't know what that face might look like if he did do something. The only other quick note that I want to point out, because it's foreshadowing, was Iron Mask Duval has a giant bull that has horns that can apparently gouge the hearts out of anyone that it attacks, except the horns are too short and they don't actually...
oh, I didn't even notice that. That's hilarious.
But it attacks Luffy, and Luffy stares it down and goes, hey, let's not fight. And the cow just backs off. It, like, takes a couple of steps back and, like, sits down. Everyone's like, what did Luffy just do? Like, Robin, the smartest member of the crew, she doesn't know. Brook, the old guy who's probably seen a bunch of shit, he doesn't know what this stuff is. So some kind of weird thing that's happening to Luffy. Maybe he got sick and this, like, it's a disease that he can make cows sit. It's the cow sitting disease. We all know about it.
Cow sits.
Yeah.
Now, here's the cool thing.
Yeah.
When we got to these episodes the first time I was watching through One Piece, and we were like, whoa, what did Luffy do? You leaned over and you went, hey, wife, you've seen this before. Actually, you might have not even called me wife at that point. I don't think we were married. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The point is, you leaned over and you were like, we've seen that before. And I went, no, we haven't. And you went, yes, we have. We've seen it before. And I was so adamant that we hadn't, that you pulled up the scene of Shanks staring at the Sea King. And you went, see? We've seen it before. So, Oda foreshadowed this literally in the first arc. That's incredible.
Yeah, it was in the first chapter of the manga, and it was in episode 4 of the anime, because I guess... I've never actually read One Piece manga from the beginning, but I guess the manga starts with the flashback of Luffy as a child with Shanks, and then skips to present day when he's on Alvida's ship, whereas the anime chooses to show action scenes and then do a flashback to Shanks. But yeah, no, Oda seemed to have some idea to this going on, and I guess theoretically... he could have written that scene with Shanks and been like, oh yeah, it's just sheer intimidation. Like, Shanks is so powerful that, like, he gives off some kind of, like... yikes vibe, right? He makes your instincts go, better not fight him. But I think by the time we get to this point where Luffy uses it, I think that Oda had better figured out kind of how it works, and I don't think it's necessarily just being scary, because Luffy wasn't really like, I'm gonna fucking kill you. He was just like, hey man, let's not fight, and the cow was like, okay.
Be chill, cow.
Yeah, be chill.
So really quick, do you want to talk about these episodes and then do succinct summary for Jipang and talk about Jipang, or do you want to just do the succinct summary for Jipang, get that out of the way, then talk about all the episodes?
Let's just get the Jipang stuff out of the way. Honestly, I don't have much to say.
All right, succinct summary for Jipang. They're in Jipang again. There's going to be a race, a shrine race, a portable shrine race. And we see some familiar characters. Duval is there. He's got his own shrine. And
the rolling pirate Lola is there.
Thank you. I wanted to call her Charlotte. That's wrong. But Lola is there. She's got her shrine, and the Straw Hats decide to have themselves built a shrine, and they accidentally fish up Brook, and Brook is a skeleton and he has no memories, and they're like, well, that's okay, you can hang out with us, but oh no, some ghost, some spooky thing is going around destroying everybody else's shrine, and we discover there's a group called the Thriller Bark Company, and they do some stuff, and Brook remembers that he used to be a part of the Thriller Bark Company, and they tried to kill him, and Luffy is like, you can't have Brook back, Brook is our friend, and then they race and they win, and that's the end.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great succinct summary. Succinct summary! One thing that I found odd was that Thriller Bark Company seems to be led by Dr. Hogback and not by Moria. Moria is never even mentioned in these episodes, which, I mean, fine. You're in an alternate universe, but you'd think just use the same guy.
Maybe Moria is too badass for these episodes. Like, he would be too OP.
Yeah, too OP and OP. But what's weird is that they still have zombies. It doesn't matter. These episodes are fine. They're whatever. We also get Frankie and Kiwi and Mozu, I believe. They're the ones that build the super extra pretty cool shrine.
I will say the joke. Well, we're not at favorite moments yet.
Okay.
I like Frankie's introduction in the Jipang episodes. Were these better than other Jipang episodes or worse?
I've forgotten other Jipang episodes. I know that Foxy shows up at one point. What? Go ahead.
We had the one where Foxy fought Buggy.
Okay, yeah.
And we had the one before that.
We've had like 3 or 4, man. We had one where Robin was a ninja and she helped Vivi or something like that. And then we had the one that was Foxy's return. And then we had the original one with Buggy. Buggy is thankfully gone from Jipang, and thank goodness, because honestly, a guy can only show up and do crimes so many times before the town develops a Batman like anti-serum, like an antibody.
Joel, are you familiar with the slogan, be gay, do crime?
I've heard it, for sure.
So it's been around since, like, I think 90s activism.
Really?
Yeah, it's been around for a long time. But now, imagine Buggy and Alvida in matching BK do crime shirts.
Oh my god. They're in a relationship with each other, even though they both claim to be gay, but it doesn't matter. They fall under the bisexual, which counts as a being gay doing crime.
You're so awkward sometimes with your words.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. We're trying, folks. We are doing our dangdest. Did you like the Jipang episodes?
Nope, not at all.
Were there any new reveals in the Jipang episodes?
There can't be. They're filler.
They're filler. Did you have any favorite moments or quotes from the Jipang episodes?
I didn't write anyone down. No, I don't care. I thought it was interesting that Robin has finally introduced herself to the rest of the Straw Hat Pirates from our universe, the main canon, and everyone's like, who are you? Even though she's been in like the last 2 episodes secretly helping them. So that was kind of fun. But that's like literally the only thing that I can remember.
Okay. I have a favorite moment, and my favorite moment is what I'm about to tell you now.
My name is Kat, and I, as a host of this podcast, will talk about something on the podcast.
I really liked Frankie's introduction because they walk up to his workshop or whatever. They've heard there's a famous woodworker in town, and they're going to ask him to build their shrine. They walk up, and the doors like blow open from fans or whatever, and a piece of cloth smacks Nami in the face. And Frankie comes running out, and he is butt-ass naked. Why is he butt-ass naked? Because the big fans blew off his loincloth, and that's what smacked Nami in the face. Kiwi and Mozu come out, and they're all like, you can't just run out like this! And they cover his, wiener, and he's like, I do what I want, I'm a man! And it's hilarious, and it's very Frankie.
Really quick, I didn't want to interrupt you when you were in the middle of your flow. Penis is probably a great example of the fact that sometimes you are also awkward with your words. And no, I'm not salty that you called me out like 5 minutes ago.
Did I say, penis?
Yeah. Oh, no, you said, wiener. Sorry. They cover his, wiener. That's an important distinction.
We've been ranking the vulgarity of different terms for the peener, and I think wiener, peen, peener, those are all the least vulgar way you can refer to it.
Yeah, and when you say we, are you implicating me in this crime? Because I have not been involved.
You were part of that conversation.
Okay, I believe you. Folks, if Jipang is your favorite set of filler episodes, could you just let us know why? I'm not mad. I'm not saying like, oh, you have shit taste. What aspect of it appeals to you? Because whatever aspect that people might enjoy about this are just complete misses to me. We keep talking about how we want filler with a continuity, and that's exactly what the Jipang episodes are, but it still feels like nothing. And maybe that's because the continuity is only insofar as it's the same setting. There's not like consequences or anything like that, but
there's not an ongoing plot. I will say the Jipang is more fun to watch than other filler because Jipang leans into the fact like this is nonsense. This is a non-canon, fun, silly adventure. Whereas like the dragons or the rainbow mist or the who cares of whatever of wherever, like whatever, man. that going to be a soundbite?
Yeah, the wherever of whatever. It's whatever, man.
But I don't care about a lot of that stuff. So the cool thing about Jipang is it doesn't try to introduce these new characters who are only going to be around for 3 episodes. It just lets you have a silly adventure with the characters we already like.
Yeah, because it uses characters we already know from canon. It can basically just say, you know what Hogback's like. We don't have to show that he's evil because you know that he's scummy.
I'm evil, I'm Yan evil.
I'm evil.
Going back to Japan, or not Jipang.
The opposite of Jipang. The Flying Fish Riders.
Flying Foosh Doodles. We are done with Jipang.
We're done with Jipang. Possibly forever. I don't know how many more Boss Luffy specials there are.
Was there any new information that you feel is important revealed? Obviously, the existence of the Flying Fish Riders is new, but who cares?
Yeah. We do get introduced to an idea that is going to be important going forward for Sabaody Archipelago. That is that fishmen and mermaids especially are sold to someone or something, and mermaids fetch a high price because they're so flippin' fast. We didn't technically know that, I don't think, but it's confirmed by Papa that the mermaids are the fastest swimmers in all of One Piece.
Even faster than the flying fish that tried to drown Sanji, so she
Yes.
conveniently was able to rescue him.
Do you want to go into the drowning Sanji thing? Because I left that out of my succinct summary.
Sure, they were fighting Sanji and they captured him in a net and the fish dragged him underwater and they went real fast and they're like, oh no human can swim fast enough to catch up to the fish that are real fast. But then Kami was like, I am no human, and she dove in and she was fast.
Oh, she's a Lord of the Rings buff. Okay, that makes sense. That's actually how she got eaten by the Sea King as she was reading the Silmarillion for like the 13th time, looking for any typos or secret mysteries to post on the online forums. Okay, also, to be clear, Kami rescues Sanji, and they come out of the water, and she's freaking out because she thinks that Sanji's dead, and everyone's like, oh my god, look at all that blood. But wouldn't you know, it's the blood from his nose. He is a pervert, and she has boobs, and he's touching them with his head.
This is a funny joke that is going to continue and will continue to be very funny for the rest of Mermaids.
It gets funnier every time you hear it.
Every friggin' time. But that aside, going back to the human trafficking, or the person trafficking, I guess.
Yes.
We did find that out. And I think that that is another sign that this world that One Piece takes place in is broken. Because mermaids and fishmen, they're obviously people. They have thoughts and emotions, but someone decided it was cool to sell them.
Yeah. What makes it especially gross to me, and it's not really explicitly highlighted, but you've got Duval and the Flying Fish Riders as this gang, but they're also working with 3 fishmen that I don't remember the names of. I think we're given them, but they're like D-list characters. But they're helping. These are fish people who are helping humans traffic other fishmen. And I don't know like all of the details of slave trade in real life, the historical truth or whatever, but just you'd expect there'd be some unity, that the fish people and the mermaids would all resist the humans, but there's some of them that are playing for the wrong team. Mm-hmm. So that's just, it sucks, and that's unfortunate, and hopefully Luffy is going to wreck someone's shit as he does wherever he goes, and hopefully that will right the wrongs of injustice.
Our boy is really into freedom. How do you think he's going to react to a literal slave trade? And Oda does seem to be going in a chattel slavery direction with this. Which is a very specific form of slavery, and it's much more horrific than a lot of other forms of slavery. Like, there's indentured slavery, and there's a wide variety of slavery in history, and the reason chattel slavery specifically was so horrific was because people were literally being treated as animals and property, and they didn't have any agency in what was happening.
Yeah, it's terrible, and I don't even have the words, and I'm not even sure that this is the right place to discuss those themes and such. I will just say that people who think, haha, silly pirate cartoon, not about it, no politics in here. One Piece has always been about politics. You have power-hungry people from Crocodile and Wapple and Axehand Morgan doing whatever they want because of selfish reasons, because of status, because they think they can get away with it. And you have regular people, like citizens who are not really on one side or the other, suffering because of the effects of these powerful figures fighting each other. Now, is Crocodile a specific stand-in for one political party or one specific historical moment in Brazil in 1988? Probably not, but the general themes are fairly political, and I just want to say that.
Yeah, well, and like you've said, this is a silly pirate anime podcast. It's not really the place to get into politics, but a phrase that I really like is, the personal is always political. So no matter how hard Oda tried, some of his own political beliefs are going to slip into his work, because that's just a natural part of creating something. You're taking a piece of yourself and putting it onto paper for other people to read. And the message that Oda seems to be putting into his work is freedom is important. People who restrict the freedom of others are dicks.
Yeah, so absolutely.
That's just how we feel about that. Later in One Piece, we get into specific issues where people have been like, stop trying to make One Piece political. And I'm going to tell you now, for when we get there, the existence of certain types of people is not inherently political, but even if it were, there's politics in One Piece. So be quiet, go sit down. Enjoy your pirate anime, enjoy the podcast, leave us alone.
I mean, this isn't One Piece, but Naruto had literal genocide, and what's the other one? Bleach also basically had genocide. So, like, it's just it's a thing that comes up, and it might partially be because, ooh, that's scary stakes to have an organization that is systematically attacking people. But also, we all agree that that's bad, but it's also that is a political thing. Anyways, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I'm going to push my soapbox back under the table.
Japan has a lot of history, and I think a lot of that history is traumatic for both the people who were victims of it and the people living in Japan, right? Japan has not always been the aggressor. They have not always been the victim. And I think a lot of that generational trauma comes through in the art that is produced by the country.
Yeah, absolutely.
Going back to new info, we talked about the human trafficking. We talked a little bit about this new weird power of Luffy's.
I mean, it would be unfair to comment on it any further. We've only seen 2 instances of it, and
I am holding up 3 fingers because we kind of saw Luffy do this in Thriller Bark, didn't we? When he told the dog to sit?
Oh, yeah. That felt to me more like he asserted his dominance through physical force, like he punched the Cerberus into the wall, and that was enough for the dog to be like, all right, I'm not going to mess with him. He's going to punch me really hard again. And I think that that's different than these other 2 instances, which seem to be some kind of, like, almost psychic ability. So I will agree that maybe there have been other instances of it, but the 2 major ones of Shanks and Luffy, we've only seen it work on animals. So I would assume that it's only animals at this point from the text. We have no evidence that it could be used on people. And if it can be used on people, you're going to have to be really careful, because how do you have tension in a series where one character can just knock out other characters willy-nilly? So I look forward to seeing this develop, but we're not going to get specific answers for a little bit. But we're going to continue seeing more and more hints starting now. And in fact, there's a couple of other things, if you're new to the series, haven't read further, you don't know what's going on. There's been a couple of other things that seem unrelated, but actually are kind of related. But we can't talk about how they're related because we don't know how this power works.
Yeah. So we'll put a pin in it.
Maybe it's a D thing. We don't know Shanks' full name. Shanks could be, like Shanks D, a lion or something like that. And so maybe it's an ability, and that's what the middle initial stands for.
Do you think... We don't have a full name for Shanks, right? He's just Red Hair Shanks.
Yeah, Shanks is the only name we know him by.
Do you think Shanks could be related to Luffy in some way? Like, why did he take such a strong interest in this little screamy child?
Listen, even if we talked about every episode of One Piece that's come out and every chapter of manga, I still don't know the answer to that because we don't know anything about Shanks. We have some ideas. We have some rumors. You know, his ship is called like the Red Force, I think, and it looks very Viking-y. Because the Vikings, if you don't know, came out with a new ship, and that's why they dominated the seas for a couple hundred years until other people caught up, you know, technology-wise. And so Shanks rides on a ship that's very Viking-inspired, so that's kind of interesting. We know he has the scars over his eye. That's interesting. We know he's one of the 4 emperors, but we don't know what his personal philosophy is. Is he going after the One Piece? Is he trying to destroy the world government? Is he secretly a revolutionary? Unclear.
If I had to guess about his relationship with Luffy, I would probably guess that he knows
How special the D is, like
yeah,
the significance of it.
The significance, that's the word I was looking for. He knows the significance of the D, and so when Luffy introduces himself as, I'm Monkey D. Luffy, fuck you! Shanks is like, alright, I'm gonna keep an eye on this little feral goblin child.
You know, I like that. There's also the possibility we've recently found out that Luffy is the son of Dragon and the grandson of Garp. So if Shanks thinks that there's something special about either of those 2 individuals, or he follows their philosophy, or he's secretly their pen pal, then he might have gone to check on Luffy out of respect for one of those 2, and then maybe Luffy said something that, like, impressed him. Like, okay, so we're also rewatching Avatar at a very slow pace, but, you know, they found out that Aang was the Avatar because he picked out 4 toys from a bunch of thousands of toys, and those 4 toys were the familiar toys of the Avatar. What if Luffy said something and Shanks is like, oh my god, that's what Dragon said to me the first time that we met, or that's what Garp said the first time we met, and so he knew that there's something special about Luffy. My personal theory is Shanks knows that there are different types of people in the world. You know, you've got like Buggy type people, and you've got Luffy type people, and you've got Moria type people. And I think Luffy, even at a young age, exhibited something that Shanks went, you know what? He just might have what it takes to be an anime protagonist. I support you, buddy.
Okay.
But he definitely, I think, took a liking to and specifically nurtured Luffy for having seen something that either we've already seen or something that happened off screen.
Absolutely. Was there any other new information that you feel like was relevant?
The lion mouth can shoot a cannon.
That's
a giant
true.
laser. And Usopp was the one who used it, so...
Oh, that was so cool.
Usopp and Frankie are just the best of bros. I wholeheartedly love their friendship, and if you want to ship them, go ahead. I choose not to.
I follow someone on Twitter, @DragonCov_, who... They do a lot of Usopp fan art. Usopp is just their favorite character. But they also do a lot of fan fiction, and they tend to write Robin, Frankie, Usopp as a family. They really like the idea of Frankie being fatherly to this person who never had a father growing up. And they like the idea of Robin and Frankie together, I guess. So Robin kind of fills that mom role. And it's really cute. I love all of their Usopp family posts. They're wholesome and sweet, and you should follow them.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're looking for more One Piece content. Let's see. Here's something else that I did not mention in the succinct summary that is kind of interesting, and I think was kind of the logical conclusion, but we hadn't seen proof of it yet. But Brook can use his music to put people to sleep, because I think he said something along the lines of music affects the soul, so if you play a certain note, it can resonate with them, and it can affect their moods and stuff, which, I mean, if you play D&D, that's what the bard does, so it makes sense, but now we have confirmation.
I extremely dig it.
Yeah.
And I love Brook doing less sword things and more music things, because the sword thing is Zoro's thing, you know? So it's cool to see Brook using his musical abilities in a combat situation. I think that's neat.
Of course. I also really like the idea of Brook being a support unit, like him and Usopp and Robin, not necessarily being on the front lines, but they could be in the back, and Robin could be doing tactical stuff. She could be using her hands at like exactly the right moment to, I don't know, mess with enemy trajectory. Usopp is long range, and Brook could be playing like a courage song or something like that. Although I do wonder, because music, you can't really like direct it very well. I wonder if he played a song that made people feel like they were stronger, if it would also affect the enemies. So maybe he needs like headphones or like some way of directing
like a
the
directional
music.
speaker.
Yeah.
Well, because didn't his song make Luffy fall asleep?
I can't remember. This is the problem. We need to start recording these episodes after we watch the episode.
We say that every time. Folks, I just want to apologize again. Like I said, I've been pretty sick, and so it's been a struggle to do a lot. But I'm here for you because I love you and I love my husband and I want to support this podcast endeavor that we're doing. So the Brook stuff is interesting. Does it count as new information that, like, apparently a starfish can just learn to talk if it doesn't know it's human? Or if it doesn't know it's a starfish?
Popbug is so weird. I think that technically counts as new information, but I'm wondering how often we're going to get that joke.
Here's some new information.
Yeah?
A character from Arlong Park has returned. We didn't mention this in the succinct summary. Hachin the octopus, who uses the 8-sword style. Did you mention it in the succinct summary? I was paying attention. I just have already forgotten. I've got the brainworms.
No, yeah. Well, and technically he uses the 6-sword style because his legs are the last two. But yeah, the guy that Zoro fought is back here. And at one point he decides to try to cover himself in ink so they won't recognize him. And everyone is like, that's definitely him. And so they ask him like, hey, how's Arlong doing? He goes, oh, Arlong was taken away to prison, but I escaped. Oh, no. Because I don't know if you remember, but Hachi is an idiot. He was the dumbest member of the Arlong Pirates, so, you know, big bimbo energy.
But he runs a takoyaki stand now that Kami works for, I think.
Yes, and he, his story in particular was a cover story from the manga, which I didn't know, because again, I started reading the manga right around Thriller Bark, I think, but yeah, apparently readers knew that he had escaped prison, but who would have thought that Luffy would eventually run into the takoyaki stand?
And we have a moment where we're like, oh shit, are we gonna help that guy? What about Nami? And Nami's like, you know what, it's fine. Let's help this guy. Which, you know, I think is really cool. And I think we're gonna get more from Nami as she goes to Fishman Island about her dealing with her personal, like, trauma and any racism that she has that's related to that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very big of her. And again, I don't know the real world politics of what is and what isn't justified, but to hold all fish people to a certain standard because of the way that Arlong treated her would also be shitty on her part. So I'm glad for that moment of growth. I'm hoping that they get a moment where they actually talk with each other as opposed to Nami telling the crew that she forgives him. That'd be great to see in the next couple of episodes, but I don't remember if we get that or not.
Yeah, so all in all, some cool character beats in these episodes, even if the episodes themselves are kind of like, oh my god, are we done yet? Did you like these episodes? That's a question we ask.
No, not really. I feel that Sabaody Archipelago is a great arc once you get to the actual arc, but there's a lot of stuff that feels like filler, and it's not. It's important to the overall arc of One Piece, but I really like it when the arc, or when the themes can also interact with the fighting. Like, if there's a bad guy who represents, like, I'm gonna steal your freedom, and Luffy's punching them as he's expelling some, you know, villainous monologue. I like that a lot better than them sitting on the ship being like, is restricting freedom bad? And Nami's like, yeah, I think restricting freedom's bad. And that's what this feels like, right?
Yeah. You know, when you're on a really big roller coaster, and it starts to go up, and you're just kind of chilling, and it's very slowly like just up and up and up, and you're like, okay, when are we gonna get to the like screamy fun part? And then it just takes a turn, and you're like, woo! That's Sabaody.
It absolutely is, for sure. We're gonna have to see how the Duval stuff shakes out. If you haven't seen what happens next, you might be a little bit surprised and maybe a little frustrated. I know friend of the podcast, Trey, shares my opinions on Iron Mask Duval, that he's a weird character and he's kind of stupid.
It's weird that they seem to want us to sympathize with him, because not only is he a people trafficker now, which is bad, and I'm not gonna feel bad for a guy who literally traffics people, but even before that, like, his thing was he walked around town being a dick to everyone.
Yeah, he was a mafia member or something that was, like, stealing people's money, but, you know, whatever. I mean, I guess in a world of pirates and stuff, in a world with injustices, you might have bad people that are pushed into those positions because of socioeconomic, historical, political stuff. And so maybe Oda's making a point about that. But yeah, if I wrote a story, I would not have a human trafficker be like, I'm sorry, I'm secretly a good person at any point.
If you put the people trafficking aside, because I think that is bad.
Definitively, yeah.
But if you put that aside, the rest of his crimes are relatively small potatoes compared to someone like Crocodile.
Yeah.
So he's not the world's biggest dick until you add in the people trafficking. And then it's like, I feel like you should get kicked in the face a whole bunch. And wouldn't you know, that's what Sanji does for us. This is why we love Sanji.
Yes, absolutely. I have one more thing about these episodes, another character moment. We see Zoro very upset with himself, training with giant weights, and he's berating himself for being too weak, and he has a flashback of trying to fight Kuma and losing. I've heard the argument that Zoro only ever thinks of things in terms of pure strength, like he needs to be able to cut harder and he needs to be able to withstand more and more attacks. And I agree that that's the traits that he's most exhibited, but also his frustrations at his lack of strength seems to be his driving motivation. And so I'm glad that he didn't almost die and then just brush it off as, it's whatever. He almost died, and he doesn't want anyone to know because he's a tough soon man who does not show his emotions. But inside, he's like, oh man, I gotta do more push-ups. I gotta try harder.
Yeah. No, that's good. I feel for Zoro, but at the same time, when he's thinking about how he needs to be stronger, it shows a flashback to him taking Luffy's pain and, like, surviving, and it's like, man, you were supposed to die and you survived. Like, you're plenty strong. Good for you. Claps for Zoro. But of course, if you are someone who is aiming to be the best,
yes,
I could see why he would feel like he's not.
Well, not only that, but I feel like to Zoro, the fact that he said, please take my head instead of Luffy, he had to acknowledge that he could not beat Kuma, and he had to leave himself to the mercy of his opponent, and he got lucky that Kuma is a apparently kind person or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have any favorite scenes or quotes from these episodes we watched?
We forgot to talk about the MVP of these episodes, Catherine. I can't believe it completely slipped our mind.
We haven't done MVP of the episodes in a long time. Tell me.
Sengoku's goat. Little baby goat boy
is the goat.
Absolutely.
He's sitting there eating something, and I'm pretty sure those are Sengoku's important papers. And Sengoku's probably going to be like, where's my papers? And then he's going to look at the goat and be like, goat. And the goat's going to be like,
now listen, in shows they will sometimes do a thing where you don't see a character's face for a long time, and then when you do see it, it's this big reveal, or you don't know a character's real name, like Shanks. We don't know Shanks' actual full name. There's another character who shows up, and we only know their first name, and then later we find out their last name. You're like, oh my god! But Sengoku has a goat that does not have a name, and it's a little baby goat boy, and I love him so much, and I think that his name might actually be something important. Like, if Sengoku turns to the camera and he's like, this is my goat, Charlemagne, or this is my goat, Gold Roger. What does it mean?
To be clear, it's not a goat boy.
No.
It's a goat. It's just completely goat. You kept saying little baby goat boy, and so I just wanted people to know that, like, that's just the way that we talk.
Yeah, I'm just a meme boy.
I call my cat Rocket the babiest boy.
Right.
So, but yeah, no, Sengoku's goat, 10 out of 10, would hug. I really love Sengoku's interactions with Garp. I guess that's a new reveal. We find out that they're friends?
Yeah, I think we've seen them interact before, because I think right after Water 7, Garp was laughing his ass off about Luffy, like, destroying the flag, and Sengoku's like, this is not a laughing matter. But those two are basically married. Like, they are always in each other's shit, and Sengoku is the straight-laced, like, we must do things properly. I have to report this to the authorities. And Garp's just like, man, just tell him it was a mistake.
Oh, man, like, I want to say every One Piece movie from here on out has scenes of them just, like, not even in the action, just, like, chatting with one another. They're just, like, expelling exposition about what's happening in the story. And, it's cool. I love these married grandpas. I hope that they enjoy their eventual retirement. They should probably retire soon. Sengoku seems like, his blood pressure might not be doing so well.
You know, it's a crazy world out there with pirates and shit just running amok, and you have this rubber boy who burned down a flag and defeated 2 of the Shichibukai.
Your husband was supposed to arrest him, but he's just like laughing his ass off. He won't do it.
There is a moment to properly set up this scene for those who forgot the episode or haven't seen it. They are in a room and Kuma's there, and Garp is basically laughing his ass off about Kuma being like, I failed to capture the Straw Hats, and Sengoku is very like, did you really fail to capture them? Did you take pity on them because they were weak? What's going on? And Kuma says nothing, which is interesting. I think that's a certain form of civil disobedience, but... yeah, and so Sengoku is basically freaking out about the fact that Luffy's becoming a bigger and bigger threat to the stability of the world, and Garp's like, don't worry, Luffy's not gonna, like, brag that he beat Moria. And, I mean, we've been with Luffy for, what, almost 400 episodes? Yeah, he's not really the type who brags about that stuff.
He straight up was just like, yeah, Smoker took the credit for me beating Crocodile, whatever. I'm not even sure Luffy's aware that happened, but I can't see him caring if he was.
Yeah, he's not after the fame. He's after the prize, the adventure of getting to Raftel. And so he doesn't care who he's defeated or who bested him, just so long as at the end of the day, he's the one who gets to the end of the maze.
Absolutely.
Except it's not a maze, it's more like a tunnel, but there's like strong guys. Like, imagine, instead of a labyrinth where you have to pick to go left or right, there's just 15 Minotaurs, and each Minotaur is bigger and beefier than the Minotaur in front of you. You get to the back one, it's like a Minotaur with like 18 arms, but at the end of each arm, each finger is actually a smaller Minotaur.
You've defeated the mini Minotaur, but can you defeat the mega Minotaur? Many tartars hate tartar sauce. I'm sorry, that's a reference. Anyway... what was I going to say? I was going to say some words. They were going to be into the mic on the podcast.
Luffy doesn't care about the status.
No, he does not.
Okay.
The goat aside, because we all agree that he's the MVP of these episodes. Kuma also close contender for MVP. I feel like good for him. You know, why is Kuma working for the government if he doesn't like what the government is doing? It seems questions, answers. Who knows? Next time on One Piece, I have a favorite moment from these episodes, and it's actually a series of moments. Frankie keeps thinking that people are saying hentai or pervert, and he keeps thinking they're talking about him. Which, like, for one, I love that he embraces that other people think that he's a pervert because he walks around in a Speedo. Like, good for you, man. You know, you're living your best life, and if other people want to call you out on it, fine. But also... every time this happens, the crew goes, they're obviously not talking about you. And I love that. That's one of my favorite tropes in anime. My Hero does it a lot and really well, I think, where one character will say something stupid and the whole group will go, that's obviously stupid. And I dig it.
Yeah, it's very good. And I mean, we already got a hint of that on the sea train. Frankie was fighting Nero. He said something like, I'm about to transform, and it showed the kanji for transform, which is like hentai or henshin or something like that. And then it showed Nero, and he nods, and it shows the kanji for hentai, which is phonetically very similar and whatnot. And so, yeah, we get more of that. That's pretty good. I like that everyone seems to have forgotten about Kokoro being a mermaid. Like, Sanji, it makes sense. He wants to sex up the mermaid, so of course when he saw a mermaid who didn't fit his definition of beauty, he was like, oh, that doesn't count. But like, even Zoro's like, I don't remember. And it shows like the thought bubble of Kokoro, and it just like disappears out of existence. Like, there's some pretty good jokes in these episodes, even if they're not necessarily my thing.
Mm-hmm.
I also want to shout out the serpentine currents, whatever they were called. I think they called them serpent currents. But, at first, I was like, what is the point of this? It just shows the characters using their attacks. We've already seen them use their attacks. Why is this impressive? Who cares? But if you look at it in the lens of people don't go to the Grand Line because it's scary and dangerous, and only like brave, valiant people can do it, only crazy people can face it, it makes sense that there's this crazy weather thing. That how would a real life person deal with that? They couldn't. And the fact that the Straw Hats are dealing with it like it's nothing also helps sell their growth and how crazy they are.
Absolutely. Well, and also, if you put the weird Brook filler aside and you pretend that didn't happen, this is Brook's first chance to do something useful for the crew, and he plays them a rousing song that helps them get through the storm. So I really think in the manga, this was supposed to be like a Brook moment. It was supposed to demonstrate Nami's skill as a navigator so that later when she can't navigate to somewhere, you're like, oh, but she best navigator, what?
Absolutely.
And also, we've discovered that it's really hard to turn the wheel of a ship. It's hard to be a helmsman, so maybe they need a big buff dude to be their helmsman.
I mean, maybe someone like in armor that like augments their power or something like that. That'd be pretty great.
They need that huge, big, buff fish from SpongeBob that has a tiny man strapped to his back, and those two fight as a team. They have one name.
I must have missed that episode. Although I'm sure as soon as you show me a picture, I'll be like, oh yeah, that guy. I remember that guy. But I think that about wraps it up. Do you have any kind of thoughts for the future? We've already kind of talked about the one and only thing that matters, which is Duval. That, seems like maybe he's not as bad as he's made out to be. And
this
we talk
is
about the human trafficking.
This is pretty strongly influenced by my foreknowledge, and I recognize that. But even if I were seeing this for the first time, I don't think Oda would introduce a concept like people trafficking and then have it be not a thing, right? So yeah. I think that that's going to play a really major role, maybe in this arc, maybe in all of the arcs moving forward. But I think that's the most important note from their interactions with Duval, is that there are people who are trying to capture mermaids and fishmen and sell them. I'm also wondering, like, the Straw Hats make allies everywhere they go, right? So these Duval people, if they end up being allies, like, what function could they serve to the Straw Hats? Is this going to be we come back in 800 episodes and we're stronger because you inspired us sort of thing? Or are they going to assist in this arc? They can fly, which would be useful, but the Sunny can also fly. So I'm kind of wondering, like, where are we going from here?
Although the Sunny can only fly in a straight line.
Once.
What?
Once.
Well, I mean, you could do multiple coup de burst, but it is still just like you're going straight. You can't really control when you land, whereas the flying fish seem to be able to turn and such, and they are able to do it for 5 minutes up at a time. Also, they're just more numbers, so if they need to fight against an army of like 100 guys, I don't know why Luffy can't just take out 90 of them with a single punch, but maybe they'll just have more fodder. This is also influenced by future knowledge, but also it was pretty heavily foreshadowed at the end of Thriller Bark. They're getting to the halfway point. They're almost to the new world where things are going to get even crazier. So I'm expecting some kind of big threat, like something that is a Shichibukai level, like, opponent. Or maybe we're going to meet another admiral. Or maybe we'll run into Aokiji again and he'll freeze the entire ship. Who knows? But I guess what I'm saying is there is no way that Duval is the final boss of this island because he wasn't shit. Like, if Sanji can beat you without even breaking a sweat, without even breaking out Diable Jambe, you're not a real threat. You're maybe like 2 Bellamy's on the Bellamy scale.
Oh, we were about the Bellamy scale. Hooray. Yeah, at least Bellamy needed to be punched by Luffy. This guy got taken out by an underling.
God. Oh, God, could you imagine if Usopp had to fight Bellamy? That actually would be a pretty good matchup.
That would be a really cool fight. Or Sanji against Bellamy even would be a really cool fight. Because I think that Sanji is stronger, but he would have to deal with Bellamy's, like, high speeds and bouncing around, and Sanji can, like, kick himself into the air, so, like, whomstead of. Zoro would be pretty good because he would just do the dragon twister right as Bellamy was coming in, and then Bellamy would be launched straight up. He'd be like, oh no, this is not good. Imagine Bellamy being like, Sanji, do you even know how to throw a punch? And Sanji takes a long drag on his cigarette and goes, Can I throw a punch? No. And then he just kicks him in the face.
I love that. And that has been your Doot Final Thought. Outro goes here. Thank you for joining us, everyone. As always, stay safe, be kind to one another, and next episode we'll be watching episodes 390 through 396, and hopefully I won't be such a grumpy butt because actual things will be happening. Thanks for listening, everyone. Ha-ha! What a great episode of King of the What Now, your One Piece podcast that started from the very beginning and stars these two doofuses. If you want to follow us on social media, Twitter is the best place to do that. I am at KOTWN_pod.
And I am at Pirate Ghost Host.
Absolutely, yes. We share all sorts of thoughts on there, some related to the podcast, some related to other things. But you can also reach us through email at kingofthewhatpod@gmail.com, or you can also find us on Patreon. We would love some subscribers or supporters, whatever the technical term is. Patrons. So fancy and grown up. And you can find that at patreon.com/kingofthewhatpod. You can find all sorts of things like bonus episodes, and you get to see the full cold open candidates, not just the ones that make it into the episode. Maybe someday if I learn to draw, I'll put stuff up there. We're always looking for suggestions and feedback. And speaking of which,
please take a moment to rate and review our podcast wherever you get us from. So iTunes, Spotify, Scrivener, that's for writing. But wherever you listen to our podcast, take a moment to leave a review. It helps other people find us. We are so grateful to all of our listeners, and we couldn't do this without you.
Absolutely. Word of mouth is super powerful, so if you have a friend who likes One Piece and they haven't heard of us, just direct them to the latest episode. And if they hate us, they can tell us why. And if there's an actionable item, we'll try to please you. That's how this works. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.